Now where does that come from? That's the being, you see? That's the being expressed through that love. And love comes in many forms. There are no limits. So are there any questions? The whole thing, of course, is to understand human being. When the human becomes humble, when the human starts understanding that it is helpless, that it is not a doer, it is not a controller, the moment it sees that, the human and the being become one. They've never been separate anyway. Subject and object are always one. You know, we can say that the human is the object because it appears as something. But the being is what makes it appear in the first place. And the two are one. When you begin to see that oneness, that's love. That's the totality.
Burt, a question. It seems as you're talking about this that, at least up until now, that human part takes credit for much of what you're talking about is really being. I mean,
yes.
The human part, if you say that the ego part
takes credit, doesn't it?
Well, I choose to do a kind thing. I choose to be helpful. This is my humanness expressing itself. I choose to be more, express more of my humanity, that in that kind of sense. Now, when I hear you talk about, they say, well, that's really not the human. That's the being that's
right.
Making that choice. But
it appears as the human then.
It appears as the human. The ego
right.
says, no, that's me.
Yes.
Making that choice.
Yes.
To be kind or not to be kind.
Now you begin to understand that it's the being doing it all the time. You don't make the choice. Love never chooses. Love acts. When the human makes a choice, it always makes a boo-boo, because it comes from conditioned response. I have decided to do this based on what? My past experience. You see? And therefore you make mistakes. But when you choose from love, then it's not a choice. Then it's coming. And all we need to do is listen to our heart. And we know. You're going out with two women. And they're both gorgeous and you like them both, but you can't decide which to marry. And the reason you can't decide is because the human and the being are in conflict. But if you were to become very, very still, who do I really would like to spend the rest of my life with? You know in your heart. You just know. Your heart always knows. That's the being. Okay? Yeah, the heart always knows. But the reason you become confused is because the human and the being are in conflict. And they create confusion. We can say it's the contrary to fusion, okay? It's not that confusion doesn't really mean that, but we can see it that way. And it has to be fusion between the human and the being. So the human cannot help being weak. The human is very, very weak. It gives in to every thought, gives in to every emotion, it gives in to weakness very easily. And the more the human needs something badly, the less they do it. I tell clients sometimes, I say, when you go home, I give them some techniques sometimes to do because they particularly need it. And then they're still going through their pain. They come back next week and I says, did you do it? They said, well, no. Why? Because I was so depressed, I didn't do it. When you're depressed, you do the opposite of what you need to do. Isn't that a kick in the pants? That's the human. You see? And I say, it's okay, fine, You couldn't help it. The human always sabotages. It always sabotages itself from what it's on. But when you begin to see that, and seeing is the important thing, because you're not in control, you don't do anything. When you begin to see how helpless the human is, how weak it is, that very seeing brings you to being. You see? All surrender, all trust, all awakening of the inner energy happens when we begin to become humble, when we begin to see the helplessness of who we thought we were. And then we move into being. Yeah. 95% of the time, it is through pain that we wake up. You see, when we see the invalidity of our efforts, of our doing, of our control. And then, paradoxically, as we move to being, we're in full control, without controlling.
So when you're in the being, does that automatically give you the strength to let the human
That's right.
go?
Yes. When you allow the being to be. Now you might say, how? How can the human allow the being? This is when the love of truth starts building inside you, and it comes to a crescendo. You love the being so much that you fall in love with it, because the being is your beloved. But the being is not confined to one form, to one human. It is, just is. It's a totality. It's a oneness. It is God. It is the divine life. It is it. So now, when you begin to fall in love with this, you begin to want to sit still. You want to allow yourself to be. You see? There's some words, spiritual words that are so beautiful. It says, be still and know, I am God. You've heard those 7 words, right? Yeah. So when you allow yourself to be still, you begin to see. And it is that draws you back and brings you strong, yeah.
But when you're starting to feel the love and the being, how do you differentiate it from the human part? What the human thinks.
You don't. The human is an appearance. It is always what the human is doing. Okay, now this is very, very good, and I want you to continue asking these questions. Okay, picture you are a being now. How do you see the human? What is the human doing? What is one thing that the human is doing all the time?
Thinking.
Okay, it's true. It's true. It is constantly seeking the being. That's what the human is doing all the time. It is seeking the being. I want a big home, the best, blah, blah, blah. I've got lots of money, I want a big car. Why? A big car gives me power. Power is in being. The home gives me security, gives me comfort, gives me peace, which is the being. You see what I mean? I want a relationship so that I can be emotionally secure. Why? Because I'm seeking the being. When I'm in that relationship, I feel this domesticity. I feel this warmth. I feel I belong. You see, we want that oneness. I want to belong. You see? So all the time, what the human is doing is seeking the being all the time. Now, when you start becoming aware of that, you begin to realize that the human never was. It was just a play. It was just an appearance. There was only being doing everything in the first place. Understanding me? And then you realize that what we thought was human was just an appearance. It was never real. But it was that first appearance that made us see and made us feel empty, made us feel lacking, so that we went deeper and deeper. What is life all about? What is this? What am I? Who am I? I don't know who I am anymore. And then we come to the point where we're pulled towards something deeper, you see? And it is that pull that wakes us up. And when we wake up, we realize there was never a human. It was all God playing His thing. His Leela. You see? You ever heard the word Leela? Yeah.
Gangaji and Eli of the Leela Foundation.
Yeah.
Three Dog Night came out with it, didn't it?
The Leela Foundation, yeah. So, okay, is that clear though?
But the human does not dissolve when that happens.
The human never was. It was just an appearance.
But our appearance is still, I mean...
Oh, yeah.
That body...
Yeah.
Still.
The body stays for as long as the lifetime stays, yeah, until we drop it and move on to another dimension and another energy, you see. But everything that you think you are now, what we see as physical, is the being appearing as that. You see? In the same way, when you walk and there's a light in front of you, the sun is shining and you see your shadow. The shadow is real, it's there, you can see it. But it's a shadow. And it's cast by your body. You see? So the body, in this particular case, is more real than the shadow. The shadow is just an appearance. Well, similarly with the being. The being is appearing now as my body. Every cell, every DNA, every energy, the trillions of cells that makes me who I look like, is the appearance of being. It is all being. If you were to look at my body and magnify it a few thousand times, you won't even see it. You see? Even what we call atoms, atomic energy, the atoms themselves, this is just a word that scientists came up with. There are no such thing as atoms. There's just energy. And it densifies, expands, and condenses. Expands and condenses. When it condenses, it becomes matter, molecular structure. The wave becomes particle. Particle, molecular structure, right? So we have form. And then it expands and goes back to its wave principle. So, I mean, there are thousands of different waves. Right now you can hear me because of the waves reaching your ears. You talk on the cellular phone, there are radio waves talking to somebody a mile away. You see? You watch television, again, for the same different waves that are video waves. You see? These are all different waves, and these waves can in time become particles. Right now, for example, science or technology is coming where you can create a person dancing in the middle of the room as if it's real, as if you can touch it. Okay, it's a holographic image. So we can come with all kinds of techniques, but all it is simply harnessing of that force of being, which is electromagnetic energy, and making it appear real. Right now we appear real to each other because of our senses. You see, the sense of touch, the sense of seeing, hearing, and feeling. But what is sense? You see? Let's go into looking at what is. What is a sense? And as you begin going deeper and deeper and deeper, you'll come back to the source and everything becomes clear. Everything is source. Source is playing as all different people, all different things happening. You see? And that's what peace of mind. People think that they're going to get peace of mind. You don't get peace of mind. You move to being. Being is peace. Peace is understanding that nothing ever happens. It just seems to happen. Nothing has ever begun. Nothing ends. Just is. Can you understand is? No, it is being. Who can understand being? The mind cannot. You see? But what is deeper than the mind? It is seeing. And seeing is not physical. It is the willingness. It is the willingness to go deeper than what you actually see, touch, hear. It is that seeing that takes you all the way. And all it takes is willingness. A strong drive, a love of the truth, love of the beloved. Which of course, that's what